All right, good morning. Morning, how's everyone doing? Karibuni sana. Welcome to the Afriforex daily analysis. This beautiful 27th day of September, the year of our Lord 2024. My digital calendar here reminds me, I think we have about 95 days before the year is over. So still have a bit of time at least to make some good money before the year is over. But good to see you all here. Good to see more and more people streaming in. Karibuni sana. Hope you're well from wherever it is that you're joining us from. For the sake of guys who are new to me and to us, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex, like we always say, is a trading unit. So it's a group of traders that do trade together and, of course, show people how to go about it on the chart. So John is my name. We also do have Mitch here. He is in the back office. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them, both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you, but we always do prefer that you do ask those questions in the Q&A section, so at least I can also end up having a look at them, but towards the very tail end of this webinar. But you don't need to wait until then. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on. So we're going to jump straight into it as always. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list. So you can see right there, the 27th of September, what the watch list is going to be looking like in comparison to what we did have yesterday. Only one change. You can see the Canadian dollar has switched sides, so that's gone to the sell side. So that's more or less the only change that we do have. So we can start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we'll start off with this one. This is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Clearly, you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And if we just go down to the 15-minute, you can see that in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. We did mention that it wasn't really a good time to look for the buys. We wanted to either see the market break to the upside or maybe come back in somewhere within here. You can see that there was some sort of struggle coming in. Buyers showed up, but unfortunately, they just couldn't push the market all the way to the top. It's like they just showed up, then after that, immediately disappeared. So unfortunately, this one, the buys didn't really work out fully, but definitely you can see, I mean, we've switched sides for the Canadian dollar. So that tells you that it's definitely the cards that were not acting like they should have. So unfortunately, this one, the buys couldn't lift, and you can see that the market is just pulling around. So fortunately for us today, not really a currency pair that we'll be watching out for. So the next one, this is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities on this one. So you can see the three areas right here that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere within here. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And you can see also some sort of an illustration that I had put in there of what we're expecting, to possibly see. Maybe the market possibly either taking off from within this region or maybe coming back in within this area right here. You can see that the market came back in. And if you look at the times, it's the same times that we keep pointing out: 10, 3, 4:30. Market was back in within, some sort of a buyer's region. Even if your timing is not that great and you got the trade within here, at least you did make it out alive. So you can see that the market has continued to rally up during the Asian session, but this is definitely something to do with the yens. I don't really think it's much to do with the Canadian dollar. So this is just a trade that did manage to get yesterday. So you can see it right there. The entry was there, targeting somewhere within this region right here. But you can see that the market has really taken off to the upside, though I didn't really let it run overnight. I did actually end up closing it somewhere within this region right here. So, but if I did end up hanging on, clearly you can see there've really been some good amount of money there. But nonetheless, it's okay. I mean, today's another day. We're still going to be on the charts looking for opportunities, but not on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So the next one, this is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. This one was more or less in some sort of a range. So unfortunately, the Canadian dollar didn't end up showing the weakness like would have wanted to see, or the strength like that would have wanted to see in the market coming down. But generally, you can see that the market was holding there. Moving into today, not really a currency pair that we will be trying to see whether we can end up getting any opportunities. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs that we did have yesterday that unfortunately have not made it to our watch list. So we can end up having a look at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting. So we can start off with this one. This one is from Alvin. So shout out to you, Alvin. So I can't see you're doing some serious trading that's going on over here. I can't see a number of buys happening. I think this could be some sort of a martingale system that you could be using. And I think Mitch yesterday was trying to allude to that. But unfortunately, due to technical issues, he didn't finish giving you the feedback on this one. But it looks like this could be some sort of a martingale where you're just buying more and more, as the market is going down against you. But this can be quite dangerous. I remember a time when I did this back in the day, ended up losing about $16,000. But anyway, that's a story for another day. But definitely you need to be very careful in terms of how you end up going about it. But and also, of course, make sure that you do end up incorporating your stop loss, because you can't see that if the market has come down all the way down to within here, it's moving to the upside. Can't see where your stop loss is. Just make sure that you're a bit more careful. But nonetheless, good to see that at least you're still trying to push in terms of your prosperity in this industry. So keep up the good work, Alvin. But of course, just be a bit more careful. So we also did end up getting a screenshot from Bravin. So this is on silver as always. So I can't see that you got a buy on this one somewhere within here. Good region to get the buy, stop loss just within here. I know, but of course I know that once the market started to move in your favor, you did bring in your stop loss higher. So shout out to you, Bravin. In terms of the entry, that was a really good area. That's where the buyers were. So keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Christine. Christine, if you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on gold. So I can see that you got a buy down within this region. And I can see that the market did actually take off from within there, which was good. Definitely did end up leveraging on these buyers within this area. Market started going up, but of course, once it started going up, hopefully it did end up, trailing up and bringing in your stop loss a bit higher. But this was not a bad trade. So shout out to you for that, Christine, to keep up the good work on that one. We also did get a screenshot from George. So this is on gold as well. Can't see that you got the buy somewhere within this region here, but it seems that you did have to possibly end up holding your trade and waiting for this minimal, drawdown just as the price was coming down. But maybe on entry, your stop loss was a bit further, but at least you did end up surviving that. But generally within a region, where we do have buyers, which is good. And I can see that the market did actually end up going up and your stop loss did actually come in higher. So that's some good trading, I would say. So George, always happy to see your screenshots here. So keep up the good work. So last but not least, we did get a screenshot from Peter. So this is on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So I can see that you got a buy on this one somewhere within here. If you read this pullback and got the buy there, then that's good. And I can see that after that, the market did actually start to move to the upside. But of course, once it started moving a bit higher, maybe your stop loss would have been already at break even, somewhere within this region right here. But nonetheless, at least not bad. Possibly if you did read this pullback, especially on a smaller time frame, because I can see that this is the 15, maybe on the 3, possibly even getting a much better entry, but nonetheless not bad. It seems like the market or the trade where you actually did get that entry was actually within a region of support. So that's really good. So shout out to everyone who did end up sending in a screenshot. We're really happy to see your progress. Remember, guys, if you do have any screenshots, whether good or bad, remember it's not a competition. Just embrace where you are. Feel free to send them in to us. Us guys will definitely be more than happy to give you the much needed feedback and also the shout out, that you need. So feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. So shifting gears into matters today. So you can't see the watch list right there for all the guys who are joining us a bit late. So we're going to be mixing and matching up the sell side versus the buy side. So we'll start off with the CHFs, then move on to the yens, the USDs, then we're going to finish off with the cards, then move on to the indices and the commodities. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out in terms of what to look for the buys. There were these spikes that happened. And this was because there were some interest rate news events that happened for the Swiss franc yesterday. And you can see that they came in at about 10.30. No increase in interest rates, but of course, the big boys always like to fool around. Maybe there are some prices that they did need, somewhere within this region, and you can see that definitely lots of people are possibly incited to start looking for those selling opportunities. The market came back, held within here, although could have been a bit hard to look for the buying opportunities within that region, but you can see that the market went up. It's barely just holding above here. Maybe when the market breaks to the downside, we could get something clearer, especially if it breaks, then comes back into the upside of this region. Then hopefully we could try and see whether we could get some conservative buying opportunities, within that region there. So you just need to be a bit patient. In case the market breaks to the upside of this region, comes back in, you could possibly try and see whether you could get a buy. So something like that. But right now, give this area the benefit of doubt. Reason being, you can see that there are sellers who are sitting here, and they're the ones who are reacting. I mean, if you look at how the market has come back in within this region here, you can't ignore the fact that there are sellers generally who are sitting within here. So we need to be a bit careful. In case the market actually doesn't end up breaking to the upside, there's a possibility it could come back in within this region. And this is still a good area, for you to look for your buying opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And of course, remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market comes in all the way till within that region, you still possibly can end up looking for trading opportunities down there, but making sure that in case the market breaks to the downside and holds to the bottom of that region, then you should be holding off in terms of looking for your buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one, this is the Swiss franc, the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that I had pointed out. They were a bit wide yesterday. This one was set up that I had actually ended up taking the day before yesterday when the market came down here. We're still watching out for buys, though the market didn't really quite end up making a move. But it was a trade that it also did end up getting somewhere down within this region. Market coming up, closing somewhere within this region right here. Although you can see that the market has been fooling around within this region right here. And of course, you can see that yesterday, once the Swiss franc news events came out, similar situation, the market tapped back in all the way till within this region. It seemed like a bit of a long shot, but nonetheless, you still can see that the market came back in. So for this one, for today, the game plan is, even if some buys seemed that they were working somewhere off this region, but you did need to be a bit afraid of what was going to happen within that region right there. So let's see what happens. We've adjusted the areas accordingly, depending on, of course, what the story of price is telling us. So we will wait and see. Either one of two things, it's either the market breaks above here and we actually look for the buys, on the upside of that region. If not, then we'll just have to wait and see whether we can get the market pulling back in, somewhere within this region right here, or maybe somewhere within this area. So let's see what happens on this one. Remembering, of course, the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market comes in within that region, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last ditch buying opportunities. So moving on into the next one. This is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. You can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. Similar situation with all the CHFs. The market pulled back in. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a proper buy within here, but you can see that the market has been fooling around within this region right here. And of course, considering the fact that, we do have some sort of a range that's happening within here, that's the reason why we've adjusted the areas accordingly. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a proper buy yesterday. Let's see if we'll get something much more clearer today. But the game plan is more or less the same as what we've looked at the others. So this one needs to break either to the upside. So similar situation with what we were watching out for yesterday. If we actually end up getting something like that, then well and good. We could look for the buys at that point in time, after you get a breach of structure of this range. But for now, the best area to look for the buys is actually down here. So you can set an alert there. Hopefully we can get some sort of a slowdown. Especially of the sellers coming in. We don't need something aggressive like this. Sometimes this type of moves can actually be hard to get. If we get something we can read, then at least we can try and see whether we can get some buying opportunities within that region. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Clearly can't see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere within here. You can see that the market came down just shy of that region there, but at least we did know that it was not a good area to look for the buying opportunities, and you clearly can't see why now. The sellers did react. The market came back in within this region right here. And there was some sort of a slowdown that did actually happen within this region. And during the US session, this is also a trade that I did actually end up getting, although unfortunately the market just couldn't get all the way till the top there. Possibly could have been something to do with, I don't know, possibly could be the euros, I'm thinking. But you can't see that, unfortunately, the market just got somewhere till within this region right here. Then after that, you can't see that the market turned around, but at least stop loss was already above break even because you can't see right there. And at least, even if I didn't end up making much on this one, today I'm going to have another go at it to try and see if hopefully we could get the market, moving off this area right here. There's a possibility the buyers could possibly need a much better price. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the market spike down. Can even see right now, based on what's happening, the sellers are still quite adamant. So there's a possibility we could get the market probing once again within here. Maybe even the market could come in lower, back in within this region right here before it goes up, or even maybe all the way down to within here. We'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening on this one. But the story is more or less the same. Let's wait and see what happens. So I hope you've taken note of that. That's pretty much it in terms of the CHFs. So we're going to move on to the yen pairs now. Mix and match them up with everything on the buy side. So we'll start off with the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we are trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. We don't know what could be happening right now. There were some fundamentals that had come out for the yens earlier, but we'll wait and see if this is something the big boys could be up to. We'll have to wait and see. So these are the three areas that I had pointed out in terms of where we're going to try and see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can't see what happened. The market broke above this region to the upside, actually held within here and actually continued to move to the upside. So for this one, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get buys. But of course, these are the three areas that we had set out. This is still an active candle. So don't really focus too much on what's happening right now. If you do, then that means that you're neglecting the whole story, what's happening and what has been happening. This could even just be, maybe even the big boys possibly going to stop out, quite a number of people. And in any case, even if the markets are going to be turning around, then at least we will be ready in terms of, we know exactly where we should be calling it quits in terms of buys. So we'll just have to wait and see. If the sellers do end up slowing down, we could find the market bouncing back up, but at least we know if it breaks beneath this region to the downside and actually holds beneath there, then at least we do know that at that point in time, the sales are off. So we'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening on that one. So looking at this one, seems like a similar situation. So it could possibly mean that maybe the yens, the government maybe has started doing some sort of intervention. Remember, they had started doing some interventions back in July, and the yens did actually end up getting a lot of strength. Then after that, they went on a massive pullback, maybe back to strategic levels. So we'll just have to wait and see if this could be it. But remember, one candle cannot turn the market. We still need to see more of the story. So you can't see this one. Also a currency pair we had yesterday. We're trying to see whether we could get some buys. These are the three areas we had. The buys did actually end up working out, moving to the upside. Can't see that the market broke here, came down, even did some sort of a probe within this region before, continuing to move to the upside. So today, this was what the plan is going to be, but we'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening. And of course, if you see the massive pullbacks that are happening on the yens, it just tells you that you just need to be a bit more careful, in terms of how you actually do end up approaching them. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. Can clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. The market broke to the upside, came back in. What I had illustrated here, so that the market did actually end up going up. Can't even see all the way to within that region there, but you can see that the market came back in within here after that, took off. And if you look at the time, this was at exactly 3 p.m. Time, and that's during the New York or the US session. So you can see that the market went up and has been going up even during the Asian session. But right now, during the Frankfurt session, it seems like the big boys in Frankfurt could be up to something, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens during the London session. Remember, this is still an active candle. Even on the 1 hour time frame, we still need to see more. Sometimes guys get incited, and definitely lots of late buyers here. I think today there are some people who are not going to be very happy. So Just need to be careful and always make sure that you watch out for your risk. But the main thing, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. You should be fine. So last but not least, this is the euro against the Japanese yen. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions that I had pointed out right here. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was here. I did point out that we did either need to see the market break and hold above this region for us to look for buying opportunities. On the first attempt, that didn't happen. You can see that the market probed, came back in within this region. It's only on the second attempt that the market actually broke and held above this region to the upside. And after that, you can see that the market did actually end up rallying up. So for the guys who've done the one-on-one, and the guys who've done the sniper program, you can see that the market came down here. You can see the buyers showed up. After that, the market pulled back in, within that region. And after that, you can see that the market did really end up taking off, from within that region. And this is also another setup that I got. Although on the first attempt, I did actually end up getting stopped out. My stop loss was a bit too tight, but some of us are cowboys. So get stopped out, the story hasn't changed, you still end up jumping back in, and after that you can see that the market did actually end up taking off, coming back in, within this region right here. And you can see that during the Asian session, the market really rallied up. And this is the reason why we always say, at least I'm already out of the trade. But you can imagine, by the time price is all the way up within here and you've not really done any sort of money management, then something like this does end up happening. I don't think you'd be very amused. And that's the reason why we always point out, make sure that, once the market starts to give you some gains, make sure that you're banking and securing your gains as much as possible. So for this one, for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. But like I pointed out, there could be something up with the yens. We'll do a bit of more research to find out what exactly could be up, because I haven't really looked at the fundamentals, the news really to follow what's happening and what could be happening, but we'll have to wait and see. But ideally, these are the three areas we had. But of course, if it breaks and holds beneath the red SNR to the downside, then unfortunately, that is off our case. So that's pretty much it for the yens. So we're going to move on to the USDs. So we're going to start off with the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out, and also an illustration of what to expect. Price was somewhere within here. Maybe we're expecting price to come back in. If it did, somewhere within here to look for the buys, or if the market breaks to the upside, maybe some sort of a pullback. Somewhere within here, the pullback came in, but just came shy of that area there. So we're still going to be watching out for the same areas. In as much as price has moved, it's not really moved far and beyond, the areas that we had pointed out. So you could find that there's a possibility, price could still be contained within these regions. And the story is the same. Either we break to the upside of this area and look for more buys, or maybe if the market comes back in, within these regions, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get buys. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, also trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Can't see the three areas that I had pointed out. This was just some sort of a minor scenario where we're also expecting to get the pullback coming in. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the price coming back in within that region, broke to the upside, but at least even if you got the buys here, you can see that at around 430, bit of a choppy mess within here before the market took off to the upside. Still a buying opportunity that did actually end up working out. So right now we're on the pullback phase. So even for this one, the levels are the same. So in as much as price has really moved to the upside, but the story hasn't really changed much. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens. Either the market breaks above this region and holds above here for us to look for the buys, but we'll definitely have to watch out for this region at the top. You can't ignore the fact that the buyers came up this aggressive, and yet, even if the sellers haven't reacted aggressively, but they were able to stop the buyers within there. If you ignore that area, then you're not being realistic. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember these two other levels here. In case the market comes down, then possibly you could try and see whether you could get some buys there. But also remember the red SNR, a breach to the downside, no trade. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're also trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. And you can see the three areas that I had pointed out, what we're expecting. maybe price coming back in within here. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, or maybe the market breaking to the upside of this area and a pullback, then you could look for the buy, and I had illustrated that. So you can see that the market broke to the upside, came back in. This was also a minor SNR that we're looking at, but you can see that the price still tapped back in within this region, went to the upside, and also this one. Levels are more or less the same as what we were watching out for yesterday. So there was a bullish run, but the levels and the market is still more or less contained within the same area. So let's wait and see what happens. There's a possibility price could still come back in within this region here. And of course, I think some good buys could possibly happen off here. High chance if it does come back in within here, price might just spike low, maybe trying to get some better prices than that. If you get the market holding within that region, remember to watch out for the times, 10, 3, 4, 30. Could possibly end up getting some really good buys within that region to move to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Remembering the red SNR at the bottom, in case we breach beneath that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, for the USDs, we have the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, and you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was within here, just approaching some sort of a seller's region. I did point out caution in terms of looking for the buying opportunities there. Clearly can't see why the sellers did react, and price did come back in within here, although quite fast. Then took off to the upside, second attempt, couldn't go. You can see that the market still came back in within this region, still during the US session before the market finally took off to the upside. Bit of a tricky situation in terms of grabbing the buys there, but at least we did know rather that the market was possibly going to come back into the red SNR. And like we always point out, sometimes or have an idea, that the market is going to go within a particular region, but getting those trades sometimes can be hard because, if the market comes in within that area too fast for you to actually end up comprehending what's going on, then unfortunately you can end up getting on that trade. And you can see that's exactly what happened when the market came back in, within this region yesterday, just taps within this region quite fast and just took off to the upside. So today we'll wait and see whether we can get something we can't read. The levels are the same, just like we pointed out on the rest of the USDs, not much of a change. So it's either the market breaks to the upside of this area, then we could try and see whether we could get some conservative buys here. If not, then at least we also do have these two areas where we could possibly get the market coming back in, and we still could look for the buying opportunities. So watch out for that. And no matter what you do, make sure that you do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the Canadian dollar pairs. And I think they more or less should be new. So this one should be pretty fast. So for this one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three areas right here. So right now you can see that the market is on the pullback. The buyers are just starting to show up. It's not surprising considering the fact that the market has come back in within an SNR. So this could be the first signs that the buyers are possibly starting to come in, but hopefully we can get the market coming back in, somewhere as close as possible within here, maybe even possibly tapping somewhere within these buyers, then get the slowdown, get the real buyers really coming in, then we could try and see whether we could get some buys within here. So try and watch out for that. I think some good buys could be hiding within that region there, but remember the red SNR at the bottom, we break that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So also a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get buys. We're still on the pullback, but also for this one, could find the market coming back in within this region. This looks like a level that's hanging in the middle of nowhere. But if you look at it on the higher time frame, like on the 1 hour, on the 4 hour, you should possibly see that there was a major level here that was breached to the upside. So we're also expecting maybe some sort of a pullback, some sort of a retest maybe to come back in within this area. And I think some proper buys could actually end up happening somewhere off this region right here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. So remember the red SNR as always, but I'm sure even for the guys who are new, I'm sure right now you've already started to get the hang and the drill of how this actually does end up working. So the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're also going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So those are the three areas we will be watching out for. hopefully we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. I think we could get some proper buys. It doesn't mean that the buys can't work off here. It's just that, if you get the buys here, you might not actually end up getting some proper risk to reward. Here we're looking at 20 pips. You really need to end up getting some very tight stops. And you still run the risk of being stopped out, especially, just making sure that your stop loss is somewhere within here. And there's no point really having your stop loss all the way down here, because now it defeats the whole purpose, of actually looking for a trade, because the risk to reward will be off. So let's wait and see if we can either get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within there. If not, unless you're a real cowboy and a real sniper, especially on the 1 minute, you could possibly get some buys here. But I think if you're looking for some proper buys that will possibly give you some, comfort of mind, you possibly will have to end up waiting either for the market to break above this area to the upside. If we clear above here, I think you should be good to go. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But of course, if the pullback comes in deep, we also do have the red SNR. So also make sure that you're ready for that, but also having in mind that that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our buying opportunities. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Hopefully you can end up taking note of that. In terms of looking for buys now, it's not a good idea. Clearly can't see that sellers are here. They've reacted off here before. Let's wait and see if we can get the market breaking to the upside. If we do get a nice and a strong breach to the upside, not a breach whereby the market just holds, above this region, this one could give you issues. At least if we break to the upside, then that's good. On the pullback, you can always time your entry somewhere within here to possibly go as high up as, wherever the market goes. And you can see that the buyers did actually end up showing up yesterday during the US session, which is something similar to what we've seen on the euro against the US dollar, the euro against the Japanese yen as well, despite the fact that the yens are doing their own shenanigans right now. But you did see how far the euro against the Japanese yen did actually end up going. So there's a possibility these buyers could possibly end up kicking back in. You could also find the market maybe during the London session, could be on the pullback phase. And I really hope it does end up doing that. If it does come back in within here during the London session, then hopefully during the US session, we get the market slowing down, within this area right here, then at least I think some good buys could actually end up behind, somewhere within this region right here. So let's just hope the price comes back in within there. But, like we always mention, we analyzed the best of our ability, but the markets do have a mind of their own. So we'll just have to wait and see what they do. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So hopefully you've taken note of everything we've discussed. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and the commodities, and you can see that there's no change on those ones. They're still all on the buy side. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys. Can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that it wasn't a good idea to actually end up chasing the buys. Hopefully wait and see what could happen on the pullback. And you can see that even the guys who are hitting buys within here, it was a bit frustrating. Price just wasn't moving. Then all of a sudden, at 3, the big boys just showed up out of nowhere. And you can see that the market came down. Unfortunately, there was nothing to tell us to look for buys there. And clearly, you can see that the market did breach to the downside, came back in within here. You can see some sort of a slowdown before the market did actually end up lifting off here, but just coming back in till within this region right here. So for this one, for today, these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for. So we've adjusted them based on what the story of price is telling us. And you can see that, the sellers are just pushing the market back in within this region, but we just need to see what does end up happening within this area. Of course, we do need to see, if the market breaks to the downside or this price breaks to the downside, we need to see the market come back in within here, before you actually end up attempting your buys somewhere within that region there. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But the main buyers who are actually pushing the market are actually down here. If I do end up going up to the 1 hour time frame, it's going to be a bit more visible. You can see that this is one big push. Because on the 15 minutes, you end up seeing, the higher highs and the higher low, sequence. But here you just see one big push moving to the upside. The seller has challenged the buyer, but the buyer is still in control. So for that reason, we're still going to, be watching out to see whether we can get buying opportunities. Also, do watch out for the red SNR. Remember, for the indices and the commodities, we're always fully technical. So for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, we should be looking for buying opportunities. If we break beneath and we actually end up getting confirmation that the market is actually holding to the downside of that region, then at that point in time, we start to look, for selling opportunities. But it doesn't mean that you can't get sales. You see, like the NAS, the way it's coming down. I mean, if you want to look for sales, you can. You just need to be very careful and know at the back of your mind that the selling opportunities that you're taking are actually counters. They are not in line with where the market generally is heading. So moving on into the next one, this is the Dow Jones, the US 30. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. Clearly can't see the 3 areas that I had pointed out. And in the morning, price was somewhere here, and we did expect maybe the market to come back in within here to move to the upside, just slightly just tapped that area, then went to the upside. But you can see that it also came back in within this region much later on, but it just tapped within that area so fast. Then after that, you can see that the market did move to the upside. So for this one, bus is still the same. We're still going to be watching out for buys. Right now, we're more or less within some sort of a seller's region. We did need to see the market actually either break to the upside, this area to the upside. Then after that, you could look for the buying opportunities, but you also need to be very careful. You can see the sellers who are sitting within this area right here are not your ordinary sellers. You could easily find that they could push the market down quite aggressively. So we do need to make sure that we have confirmation that they've really been taken out, especially if we get the market breaking to the upside. Maybe they could even struggle, to push the market to the downside, and they are unsuccessful and the market actually holds. At least at that point in time, you could possibly try and see whether you could jump in, on your buying opportunities. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But I would really hope, that the market actually comes back in, somewhere within this region. At least within this area, we are far off from there. So even if you get the buy, if we do get the buys within here, and we come up with the market, even if we end up, starting to get issues within this area, at least we'd have already made some profits and some gains. So just make sure that, you also watch out for these two areas. The pullback can also come in deep. This is a long shot, but remember the sellers who are sitting here, like I pointed out, they are not your ordinary sellers. You could easily find the market coming back all the way till the red SNR. So make sure that you also watch out and get ready for that in case that does happen. So moving on into the next one, and the second last thing we always look at, this is silver. So for silver yesterday, the bus was to try and see whether we could look for buys. Similar situation with today. So you can see this region right here that I had highlighted. Price wanted to see the market break to the upside, come back in within here, maybe attempt to move to the upside of this area right here. But unfortunately, you can see that the market came back in, tapped within that area. So this was a massive probe. Then after that, the market has just come back in within this area. If we look at the market structure, we're in a range. So it should be clear cut. You definitely know that the best buying opportunities are always at the bottom of the range. So we could just be getting ready to see whether we could get the London big boys actually lifting, off this area right here. And you can see that the market has actually come down within this area, tapped within this region. Buyers have reacted. Maybe we do need to see more of the story within here. But even if you do end up attempting buys, especially waiting to see what happens, maybe during the London market open. I mean, if you do end up attempting that buy with your stop somewhere within there, you can see that even just coming back to the top of the range, the risk to reward is quite decent. We're looking at a 1:2.69, which is actually not too bad. But we just need to see a bit more what happens within here. The hold is not yet fully confirmed. I mean, the market has just come to the downside. It's just come back in. Let's see what happens within here. Maybe 2-3 more candles or something of the sort. Possibly you could take the buy heading to the top of the range, but also watch out for this minus SNR somewhere within this region. More or less right in the middle of the range. You could even find that, you could run into issues within there because you can see that there are some sellers who are sitting here. If the big boy doesn't end up showing up within here, I always tell guys, you really need to watch how your market takes off from your entry. If it takes off in a sloppy manner, coming in within here, there's a possibility you will get shut down. At that point in time, you're even better off maybe scratching your trade, somewhere within here. Wait for the market to possibly reset itself. Then you could jump back in, again into that trade. But at least if, let's say, we do get the market lifting off to the upside quite aggressively, and even if it just falls somewhere within there, but it's at least above this region, and we get maybe some sort of a pullback within that area, at that point in time, you're safe. You generally just need to see the buyers really show up. In case they don't come in, with the momentum, then there's a possibility these guys are going to send them back to sender. So just make sure that you're watching out for that, but the bias should be to look for buying opportunities. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that I had pointed out right there, an illustration of what to expect. So in the morning, price was somewhere here. Remember the high that we had on gold was somewhere here, and I did point out that there was a high probability that we're going to make new highs. And the market did breach to the upside. Unfortunately, couldn't pull back in all the way within here during the London session. It's like there was this SNR right here, but there was a bit of risk taking that trade because you didn't know how far the market was going to go after that, and you didn't know whether these sellers were actually gonna hold you within this area right here. But you can see that the market broke to the upside but still came back in. This was during the US session, and after that you can see that some attempts by the buyers to actually push the market to the upside. So in some very interesting times on gold, we're making new highs, more or less, especially after it broke out of the range. We've been making new highs nearly every day. So let's see today what does end up happening. But personally, at least I think right now it might be much, much better to look for the buys, especially on something where we don't know where we're heading. Looking for the buys up here is a bit more risky, considering the fact that we do have this pullback coming in. At least now you can end up using this, as some point of reference. So let's wait and see what happens. If the market comes back into the upside of this region right here, and you do get a hold within here, you could possibly try and have a go at it, try see whether you could get the buys working off there. And hopefully these buys do actually end up showing up. But like I pointed out, you do need that momentum. When the market does actually end up taking off from within here, if you see that the market is actually not lifting up quite fast, and it's like the buyers are really struggling, there's a possibility the market might actually end up coming down. So, you could possibly end up scratching your trade, wait for the market to reset itself within here. You could find that maybe during the US session, especially like even for silver, like, we discussed, if you don't find, that volume really coming in during the London session, it's okay. Remember, gold, silver, the Dow Jones and the NAS 100 more or less tend to be very active during the US session. So you just need to wait and see what does end up happening. So even for this one, you could find the pullback coming in within here, especially if the buyers can't actually break to the upside and hold above here, and the market holds within here, then that means that this is a probe to the upside. So what you could find is that the market could come down till within here, and you could find that, if the market is back in within that area during the US session, at 4:30, you could find that the real buy might actually end up happening off that region to the upside. So just make sure that you end up watching out for that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So I hope guys have taken note of what the plan is going to be looking like over and above the other mini stories that I've told you guys. So I think we can end up looking at the Q&A section. So I see Esther Kabiro there. Good to see you saying some news on the yen. Ex-defense minister Ishiba becomes Japan's new leader. Okay, interesting. At least thanks for the heads up on that one. Appreciative of that. So thank you so much, Esther, for that. So I see Alan Rono there saying, hi, John, thanks a lot. Karibu sana. Alan, always good to see you here. Atieno on DT, you're saying Euro seems weak. I don't really think so, to be honest. I think it's just could be some pullbacks, because when we look at the numbers, we look at how the markets did actually end up moving. Forget about even like the yens, because those ones are doing their own things. In as much as the weakness is coming in, you could easily find that this could be some pullbacks. So we'll just have to wait and see what does end up happening, to be honest. So we never really make our decisions just based on what's happening on one candle. Because even yesterday when the CHFs started to move, especially when the news events came out, very many people are like, yeah, CHF is weak, but it didn't actually maintain to the downside. So maybe it could be, might not be, but I think we'll just have to honestly wait and see what does end up happening. It could be the big boys maybe fishing for some proper prices come back in. Like, for example, on this one, price comes back in within this region, and after that, you find that the buyers could possibly end up pushing to the upside. So we'll just have to wait and see, to be honest. But thank you so much for that, Gino. Good to see you here. So I see Alice Wamboy. Good to see you as well. You're saying, hi, John. Are you guys planning to trade for people? Honestly, we'll see how things go in the future. We used to do it back in the day. Then when the CMA regulations came in and stuff, we didn't want to get into trouble, so we ended up giving everyone back their money, and that was the end of it. But maybe in future, we'll see what ends up happening. If we do end up getting a CMA license, then maybe we can actually end up looking into it. But we're also quite reluctant in terms of getting a CMA license, so that we can actually end up trading for guys. Reason being, when you end up now becoming regulated by the CMA, you technically have to report everything you do, especially if you're trading for guys. You have to report every trade you take. Why did you take the trade? Did you stick within the risk parameters? And quite honestly, I don't really fancy trading with someone looking over my shoulder and telling me what to do, which trades I can take, which ones I can't take, and such kind of things. Because in any case, even if I trade for people, I would best do it the legal way. I know there are very many people who are doing it behind the scenes and stuff, but honestly, I would not really end up doing it like that. So if that time comes and we do decide to end up getting a CMA license, fine. But right now, to be honest, we're quite reluctant. Based on the amount of reporting we have to do to CMA every month, we have to account for every trade that we take. Then on top of that, your risk is tight. You see a good opportunity, but due to CMA regulations, you can't take that trade on more than, I think, 0. I don't know, some very small percentage. So even the return is very minimal. So you see, with such kind of an environment, it ends up being hard, for us to actually end up going in that direction. But let me not say never, because we never know what the future holds. But when that time comes, I'm sure you guys will definitely be the first to know. But thank you so much for that, Alice. So I guess that's pretty much it from me and from us this week. It's been a great week. Thank you so much for all the guys who've made the time to be here with us. Like I always point out, I know you're busy people, but thank you so much for always taking the time, to be with us, each and every morning, giving us a piece of your time. So we thank you so much for that. And I hope that you guys are achieving as much as possible in terms of the charts. And of course, if you're not, feel free to talk to us. Our contact details and everything, you can definitely find that information on our website, www.afriforex.com, but also on our chat box. You definitely can find all that information, and we'll see how best we can end up helping you. So I guess that's pretty much it. So I guess we'll see you guys on Monday. And with that, happy trading. Bye for now. God bless and have a restful weekend. See you on Monday.